Well, good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to the celebrating meeting of the Environmental Research Group, celebrating our 30th anniversary. It's really good to see so many familiar faces, friends of ERG. You've seen the programme. We've got a packed day. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to start with the usual announcements, just to make sure we're all on key, what we should do if there's a fire alarm. So we're not expecting a fire alarm. If there is one, then please everybody exit through the doors that you just come through, and our staff will guide you out to the assembly point, which is outside on Nash Terrace, 128 St Andrew's Place. Wi-Fi, there is free Wi-Fi for everyone. Please use it sparingly during the presentations. We want you to listen to all the interesting information we're going to give you today. There will be a few journalists attending, so you will see people probably scribbling stuff down. They may even come and ask you your opinion about things during coffee and lunchtime, so feel free to speak to them if you want to. We're recording the event, so it will be available after tomorrow. It'll be online. So if you need to go back and reflect on anything or check up on some of the facts that you've been hearing, then you can do that. There will be photography. If you don't want your picture taken, shown, then please just tell someone at the front desk and we can make sure that that doesn't happen. We have 2 coffee breaks, one this morning, one this afternoon, and obviously 1 hour at lunchtime, where you will be fed admirably in the room that most of you have just been in, having breakfast. So in there's a lot of posters, which a lot of the teams have worked hard on to put together, so please feel free to go and look at those and talk to the people that are there. There's also a lot of assortments of projects and equipment that we use in those projects, so feel free to go and discuss those things as well. So why are we all here? Well, on reflection, I guess, over the last 30 years, just to give you a little bit of history, we started with a very humble beginning. I think there was about 6 people in the team. It was brought together to look to establish some monitoring of air quality in East London, where there was deemed to be a problem. And over the last 30 years, we've grown from 1 team to 8 plus professional services teams, so 9 teams with over 100 people. So clearly what we're doing is pretty important. And as a consequence of that, that's why we decided, to reflect on that, to look back at what we've been doing over the last 30 years, but more importantly even, to look forward. Maybe not the next 30 years, but at least the next decade, because we are, living in a changing world, and that's affecting air quality as well. So, what started as those few monitoring stations in East London rapidly developed out in a very large monitoring network, the LAQN, London Air Quality Network. And we think it's the largest regulatory network in the world. It's very high quality information, and as a consequence of that, it's really been a great foundation for researchers and politicians, councillors, etc., across London as to really understand what the air quality issues were. Now, when we started, I am told, because I wasn't actually there for the first 3 or 4 years, but I am told that the information was distributed out on teletext. Now, some of you, I know, there's a few titters in the room there, some of you will know what teletext is or was, not around anymore. But then came the World Wide Web, and we accessed information through the PC. Then came the smartphone and digital apps. So where is this all going? Well, maybe in a few years' time we'll be getting it through our smart glasses, or if Elon Musk has his way, maybe it'll come in through a brain chip. But the bottom line is all the information from the LAQN is free. It's distributed to the public and to anyone that's interested. And that's really been, the mantra of our activity in the last 30 years. So the LAQN is quite a mature figure, and as a consequence, it actually has been able to have an offspring, and that's Breathe London. Now, many of you will have heard of Breathe London. It's a sensor network, which basically means it's operated through much lower cost equipment, but we're able to put out a lot more of this lower cost equipment, so it's more dense, and there are over 400 of these nodes presently in London, and it's growing month by month. But the really important thing about Breathe London is it's a community-based network. So there are communities who actually are responsible for that node and for that data and take ownership of it. And we think this is really important for one of the next steps in improving our quality in our city. Next, I should tell you about the modelling team, because the modelling team have been central really in a lot of the policy developments in London over the last 30 years. They really benefited from the expansion of the automatic number plate recognition technology, all those cameras that we have across London, because when a car's number plate is taken, then that goes down to Bristol into the national database, it comes back to us, we know what the engine capacity of the vehicle is, we know what the fuel type is, we know the speed of the vehicle on the roads. So from that, we can get a very accurate emissions from that vehicle. And if you take all those vehicle movements across London and put them into a large database, that's what the modelling team have to call upon. So we have really accurate information about what traffic in London is contributing to the air pollution issue. And so, good 20 years ago, we had valuable information which we were able to then provide to the policymakers. And as you know, in 2000, we got the directly elected mayors in London. We had Ken Livingstone to begin with. And we have worked with all the mayors since then to the present day. And as a consequence of that, policies like the congestion charging scheme in 2003, the low emission zone in 2008, and the ultra low emission zone in 2018 were brought in based on good scenario testing through the work that our modelling team did. So you'll have noticed that I've been referring to ERG like a family structure, and that's really because that's the way I think about it. In another analogy to the family, the measurement team, one of those first teams that we had, it spawned off two other teams, the aerosol science team and the exposure science team. Now, as you know, pollution is complicated. There's lots of gases, there's lots of particles that are coming from different sources. And if you're actually going to develop good policies, then you need to know what those sources are and what their contributions are. And really, to be able to do that, you need very expensive equipment. So our aerosol science team are responsible for 2 super sites in London. We have the super site on Marylebone Road, not too far away from here, opposite Madame Tussauds. In there's not equipment that costs tens of thousands of pounds, but equipment that costs generally hundreds of thousands of pounds. But what that equipment can do is it can sample the air, and it can tell us that the particles which it's got in that sample are coming from maybe the tires of a vehicle, the brakes of a vehicle, the road where the vehicle's crossing, or if it's a diesel vehicle, from the exhaust or a petrol vehicle. And then when we get excursions coming in from the continent because the French or the Dutch are spraying all their fields with fertilizer in the springtime, we know that that particle is coming from that source as well. And that is really essential if you're going to develop policies to deal with the most important pollutants. So that's the aerosol science team. The other team I mentioned is the exposure science team. And what they do is they actually measure what you breathe, what you as an individual are breathing. Because traditionally, when we're linking exposure to air pollution to health, we did that through measurements at a central monitoring site, maybe a mile away from where the individual lived, or through our models, which predicted what pollution was at a particular address. And of course, there's uncertainties associated with that. But if you can actually measure what someone's breathing and then link that to their own personal health records, then you think you would be in a better position. And technology has allowed us to do that now. So the measurement equipment has been miniaturized. People can carry it around, and you'll hear some stories about it, and you'll see it actually in the room. And coffee break, you'll see backpacks with monitors in them, or handbags with monitors in them. So we can actually bring it down to the individual level there. So that's what the exposure science team has been working on. What else can I say? You've all heard about Dieselgate. Do you remember that? Broke in 2016. Well, the ERG, we knew about it about 2011, and we started raising the alarm soon after that, because our measurements and our modelling were going in opposite directions. The measurements of NO2 were going through the roof, and our modelling was saying there shouldn't be a problem, because these newer cars, shouldn't be producing all this NO2. So that definitely showed the value of having good measurements at that point in time. Thinking about where we're going, well, we've worked a lot in the last 30 years on outdoor air pollution, but of course we know that indoor air pollution is also important. Sometimes it's actually higher inside the home than it is outside the home. So we have a particular interest in that, and particularly how indoor air pollution may be exacerbating asthma in children. And again, in the demonstrations that you'll see in Coffee and Lunch and Coffee, you'll hear about the Well Home study. And you'll hear about it in some of the presentations. In this study, we're actually putting equipment into 100 homes in West London, where we're measuring the pollution in the kitchen, the living room, and the child's bedroom. And hopefully from that, we'll understand a lot more about the triggers that may be setting their asthma off. So on day one, you're going to be hearing about those 4 stories, but in a lot more detail: the measurement team, the modeling team, the aerosol science team, and the final exposure science team. You'll hear, there's 2 talks in each session. You'll hear about our internal work from one of our staff, and then we've got an external expert to put it into perspective and tell you a little bit more about the international perspective.